evening and welcome to the Wednesday, July 10th, 2013 meeting of the Falmouth Conservation Commission. First item on the agenda is to vote minutes of 6/26/13.
I have read the minutes and find them substantial and motion for their acceptance.
Second.
Mike, the street fair didn't swallow you.
All in favor, come on, Mike. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. That's exactly what I had on the top of mine. A big okay, no gold stars here, but would have gotten one if we had them.
I'm still in a bad mood.
Look,
I can
guys,
replace your
you're all
sign
here. You've gotten past the street fair. Just get over it. Look up, be positive, we can get through the meeting. Request for determination of applicability. To determine whether the proposed work will remove, dredge, fill, build upon, degrade, or otherwise alter an area subject to protection. Christopher Sage, 47 Lakeshore Drive, East Falmouth, for permission to construct a 3-foot by 60-foot timber elevated stairway and to abandon the existing concrete steps. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'm passing down the plan and a series of photos for the board to look at. The staff feels that this project does need to be carefully conditioned to protect the interests of the bylaw and the act, and therefore we are recommending a positive 3 under the state and the bylaw with the resource area boundaries not confirmed.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table. I see he's there. But I'm going to see if anybody has any comments from the board. Any
And
comments?
another thing, Madam Chairman, is you recently saw an amendment to an order of conditions for a stairway that offered mitigation plantings as well. And there is going to be substantial clearing of vegetation along this slope. There is no mitigation proposed. So again, it will need to be conditioned.
Jeff, I know you're here for this one, so good evening.
Yeah, good evening, I'm Jeff Ryder. I'd like to pass out a drawing if you got a minute.
Thank you.
Where'd it go?
Jeff? Is that the plan we have?
That's the same plan.
That's the same plan? Okay.
And this is,
Yeah, give me my plan back then, guys. Thank you.
Okay, well, I understand, for the positive recommendation on this, and I'll accept that. I just wanted to chat just a few seconds here. There's an existing stair down this bank now that it's made of concrete, and it's got a old steel rail built in the late 60s by the Sage family. And it's time to replace it. It's just broken down, and I guess nobody's gone to the site because it's an RDA, but basically you have to be a goat to get down this stairway. It's just so broken down, and it's a mess. So what the owner wanted to start at the existing threshold at the top of the bank and end up on the pad that's at the base of the bank and go with conventional wood stair. And there's a little profile half of it anyway. There is vegetation, no doubt, on the bank. It would have to be pruned to go down there. There's no tree cutting proposed. Mark suggests that I move it to the north, and we'll look at that. I just sort of wanted to have you look at this. I filed it as an RDA. Perhaps we could consider this sort of the first NOI hearing, because I guess that's where it's going to go. But just wanted to discuss it since I did file it under an RDA, and next time it'll probably be a notice. And that's about it at the moment. But there was a comment that we have to properly condition this. I know that you could make a few conditions, but I can't think of that many special conditions for a stairway down a slope. But, it's a basic project, one that you've seen several times. Anyway, that's it.
Okay,
Madam
Jeff,
Chairman?
wait a second. I'd like you to explore removing some of the material that's there, at least the railing
Oh, yeah, we were gonna remove the rail, yeah.
and as much of the concrete as you can and restore the bank.
You know, I mean, there's a lot of vegetation already over that bank, or over those steps.
Yeah, but if there's some places that you can,
Yeah, it's very hard to, it's in heavy pieces, and we want to do a hand project here. So it's
well,
one of those things, when you go to the site, if you go.
I will go to the site if it's an
it looks
NOI.
like- Be very careful that first 10, 15 feet, that's all I can say. Because it's like a house of horrors, everything's tipped. There's no level, standard steps for at least the first half of that bank.
Okay, I was warned to belay myself if I had to go down.
But the rail's good,
Oh, but the rail's good, all right.
the rail is good.
I would insist the rail.
Okay, thanks. Jeff, are there any other questions? Did you want to say anything?
Only that I don't think it would be a difficult project to permit under a notice of intent, but I do disagree with Mr. Ryder that things will only need to be pruned. You're gonna have to put footings in here and everything else, so that bank will be destroyed, which is part of the staff's concern. So it's not just simply pruning some plants to put a big staircase in. The board's seen enough staircases to know how they need to be constructed to meet building codes, so.
Okay, if there are no more comments, there's a motion on the table for a positive determination, which means that this project cannot go forward as presented, but we can see that Jeff is enthusiastic to come back with a notice of intent. So, motion on the table for a positive determination. All in favor say yes.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thanks, Jeff. Request for hearings under a notice of intent for permission to remove, fill, dredge, build upon, degrade, and/or otherwise alter an area subject to protection. All hearings of the Falmouth Conservation Commission are heard simultaneously under the authority of the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act and the Falmouth Wetlands Bylaw. Although a single decision is issued, it represents a separate decision under each authority.
Oh, sorry, Mike.
First is Sherwood Blake, 7 Beckles Road, Falmouth, for permission to pump, fill, and abandon the existing cesspools and install a new Title V sewage disposal system, replant with trees and shrubs, repave the existing driveway, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I'll save any of my comments till after Mr. Verselli's presentation.
Good evening, Mike.
Good evening, Madam Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Michael Verselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. I have a butters cards. We've submitted a notice of intent application for permission to repair 2 failing septic systems on the property at 7 Beckles Road. 7 Beckles Road is at the corner of Sippowisset and Beckles Road. The lot contains a single-family dwelling and all the typical appurtenances you'd expect with a single-family dwelling, including landscaping, a driveway, patios, things of that nature. It sits on the center of the lot, on the highest elevation on the property. Off to the east and north is a bordering vegetated wetland that was delineated by Vaccaro Environmental Consultants. There's a sloping landform around the property that meets the definition of a coastal bank. We've delineated the top of the coastal bank on the plan as well. The property is under agreement for sale. A septic inspection was performed, and it was discovered that the property is served by 2 septic systems, both of which are in a hydraulic failure. The first one is located in the position that I'm pointing to here with my finger, and it's a cesspool. It's basically located about 20 feet from the top of the coastal bank and about 40 to 45 feet from the BVW. And it serves a portion of the plumbing within the house. The other septic system that is also in hydraulic failure is under the driveway in this location, and it serves the balance of the plumbing in the house. It consists of a 1,000-gallon septic tank and a leaching pit that's in hydraulic failure. The tank is undersized by today's standards. The minimum size is 1,500 gallons. Only a portion of the flow actually goes to the septic tank. The rest goes to the cesspool. So typically you would see a septic upgrade under a RDA application because it's something that I think the Conservation Commission would welcome getting repaired. There's no proposed alterations or improvements to the house. There's no proposed increase in septic systems. The reason we filed for a notice of intent is because we went on site with Mark Hasbisick, your agent, and we talked about the close proximity to wetlands and the fact that the driveway will have to be dug up and repaved, and there seemed to be enough work close to a wetland resource that conditioning is probably appropriate. So a decision was made to file a notice of intent instead of an RDA. So the proposed work includes certainly abandoning these systems in place, just pumping them dry and filling them with sand. And the pipe that leads to the cesspool will have to be rerouted, and the idea is to excavate a trench down the driveway over to a place where a new septic tank will be installed that is in a place that makes sense with the plumbing that exits the house here. So the two pipes that now go to separate systems will be piped together into a common septic tank, and then piped to a distribution box, and then piped to a leaching field. And the leaching field has been put in a position that gets it as far as possible from the wetland resources. In this case, the closest point of the leaching field to the top of the coastal bank is 50 feet. There's virtually no other place on the site to put this that would really increase that setback. So there'll be some minor excavation and then repaving to install these components. There's some landscaping features between the house and the road that will have to be removed and then replanted after this is installed. And we've put a note on the plan that says the landscaping shall be appropriate for landscaping over a septic system with shallow-rooted plant materials. So we're pretty much up against it here without a lot of options, but certainly this is an improvement over what's there today, with both systems in failure, and certainly the cesspool being very close to the wetland and the coastal bank here, and this leaching pit being closer to the wetland than what we're proposing. The only other thing I'd like to add is we have been to the Board of Health. We submitted the plan, and we need a couple of variances. We needed a variance from the setback to the street and a variance from the setback to the house. Both of those were granted, voted and approved. We haven't received a written document, but they had a meeting a week ago Monday and voted to approve it. With that, I'll be happy to answer questions.
Thanks, Mike. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman. Mike, two questions, well, one comment, one question. One request. BBW data sheets. I'm tired of hearing myself ask for them, so anytime there's a BBW project, just submit the data sheets as part of the application.
I thought they were submitted.
See 'em.
I thought we submitted them after the fact. I thought you asked for them when we submitted.
Didn't get them, just
Okay.
resubmit them because,
I'm happy to do that.
thank
They
you.
were done.
And you say we went to the Board of Health because I pulled the assessor's records on this and it says it's a 3-bedroom. So if you have any documentation, because you're proposing a 5-bedroom system, but the assessor's records have it as a 3-bedroom house. So, you know, our regs would call that an enlargement of the system, which then you would therefore have to overcome the presumptions
Sure. I can speak to
of
that.
significance, so.
Sure, I can speak
But
to that.
next time, provide some information if
Well, I
you
can
have
speak
it.
to it tonight. We discovered that discrepancy. We did a walkthrough. We did a walkthrough with the health agent. We did that well before we developed the plan because we found the same discrepancy. So the health agent walked through the house with us and agreed that the system should be designed for a 5-bedroom based on the number of bedrooms that were in the house.
Does he have any documentation, does he write that down anywhere?
Yeah, we would need,
I mean, I
That's
need that
submitted
written
to the
down,
record.
Mike, so I
Yeah.
know.
No, I'm happy to provide.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
all, and next time just provide it, if there's a discrepancy and the assessor's information
Sure.
says one thing, and you go to the Board of Health, and you've done this before, just, so we don't have to ask for it, just give us that information.
Sure.
Other than that, Madam Chairman, I don't have any questions.
okay. Michelle,
No questions.
report. Mario?
I think this is a tough one. Considering the directive we just got from town council on granting variances.
This isn't a variance.
There are no variances from your
variances.
There are no
septic
variances?
record.
No,
It's, says variance is required.
that's.
No,
the Board
that's
of
That's
Health.
a
Title
Board of
V.
Health situation?
Yeah.
Have we heard from Natural Heritage yet?
We have not.
And you don't have a DP number either, Mike?
Correct.
As of 5:30 anyway.
As of
Okay.
4:30, I knew we didn't.
Oh, okay. I checked a little later and we still didn't have one.
Mhm.
Mario, anything else?
No, I feel like ordinarily, I mean, this is a no-brainer. Of course, you want to get a source of pollution out of there. Prevention of pollution and groundwater. I'd vote for this in a heartbeat. But I would like a response from Natural Heritage before I vote.
Right,
So
and we
that's
will.
it.
Yeah, Mike knows that.
Okay.
So, I mean, we would have to have a continuance in any rate, because we don't have a number, but we would have to have it for Natural Heritage also.
That's it.
I'm pleased that you were able to do this gravity-fed, no pump chambers. This was a difficult design. This was a lot of challenges, so kudos.
Thank you.
That's it. Mike?
No questions.
I have one of those too. I think, once this is all done, it's gonna be better. My only concern, and actually, their concern too probably, is that they're gonna lose all those beautiful pine trees in front, and you can't replace,
There's,
you're keeping a couple, I see.
we did our best. In fact, we're hoping that there's a dogwood on the end that was showing to be removed. We're gonna do our best. No, it's a cherry, I think.
Yeah, to say that,
Mature cherry, we're gonna try to
Yeah.
save it, but the pines, there's no way around it. And we
Yeah.
can't, the taproot on the pine would.
right, you couldn't possibly put it on top of that, so.
Mike, when you come back, can you just give us a plant list of what you're proposing to put over that leach field?
I will do my best. The buyer has very specific ideas about how he wants to replant that, so we're going to have to probably coordinate with him and maybe get you a plan that shows
Okay.
that.
Yep.
Oh, that's fine.
Okay,
To have a continuance?
yeah, but we don't have a date yet, so let's have that discussion first. A date.
Mike, how long do you think you'll need? When do you file this with Natural Heritage? The 25th, same day for us?
Yeah, I
Let
don't
me
know
see
that
where
we'll
that's gonna
hear
kick
by
them
next
out
week.
to. What was that?
I don't know that we will hear from them.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is we could put you on for next week, because it seems like
We could,
little
we
stuff,
could,
Pretty
we
but-
could try for it, but I don't know if we'll hear from MISA. We'll try to call them and pressure them to respond.
You know what? Yeah, MISA they have until like the week of the 22nd. Not the 31st?
Excuse me.
Oh, sure. If you want to try next week, Mike, we can put you on, if you can
Yeah,
get me that
Why
information.
don't we try, if it
Yeah,
comes
if
through,
you
it'll
try.
be quick.
And if we don't have it, I'll just request a continuance. We won't.
Until the
Right.
31st, that's fine.
Because you're not meeting on the 24th.
Correct.
That's fine with me. Okay.
Motion to continue this to 7/17.
Second.
Okay, any other questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Any last words, Mike? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is a continuance to July 17th, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike. Pine Bank Road Realty Trust, care of Ira Kashgajian, 5 Pine Bank Road, North Falmouth, for permission to demolish the existing dwelling and construct a new 4-bedroom, single-family house with attached deck with stairs, porch, stone landings, to install a concrete retaining wall, landscape tie wall, 4 crushed stone parking areas, a Title V sewage disposal system, native plantings, utilities, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Good evening. Pardon me? Oh, Mario's recusing himself. Jen, do you have any comments?
I'll save any of my comments till after.
Good evening.
The applicant's presentation.
Jack.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Jack Landers-Colley. I've been retained by the Kashkagians to present the plan that's before you this evening. With me is the general contractor. If there's some questions that perhaps I can't answer, I'm sure he would be happy to answer them.
Jack, can you speak up so Susan can hear you? So she
Okay.
can record your words.
You can't hear me?
I mean, I can hear you, but Susan can't.
Okay.
Turn this way. There you go.
I'll speak loudly.
That was
It sounds like a lot of work. Maybe I can cut to the chase on this. Anyone who's been to this property knows that the house had a
Found the
fire,
house right away, driving down.
okay?
poor house.
Has to be
Even I
done.
Even I could figure it
Okay.
out without a sign. in
The
front
good
of it.
things about it are, because of a mandate by the building commissioner, we are not increasing the footprint. So whatever footprint you see proposed is almost exactly what was there, with a couple provisos. One is the original footprint, which is shown as a dashed line, brown dashed line, is in this location with the deck. We are shifting so it is now complies with zoning. Instead of being 4.7 feet from the sideline, we are now going to be 11.4 feet. So we are literally taking the house, knocking it down, but putting the replacement approximately 5.5 feet further east. We're doing so for a number of reasons. One is compliance. Two is so they can have a little more privacy here. And those really are the major reasons. If you look at our notes, you'll see that the actual proposed lot coverage is reduced by 0.4%. However, in order to build this house and get it comply with Title V present-day standards, we had to propose an elevated system in the back. What it is we intend to do is raise the existing, that is, remove the existing house, rebuild in the same location, officially show 2 parking spaces when they already park here, but we're depicting 2 here, and we're actually proposing to put 2 more there. This isn't consistent with our calculations because we're proposing 3/8-inch crushed stone surfaces to be placed on a permeable sub-base and base. If you've been to this area during a rainstorm, you'll know that there's a lot of standing water. So what we've done is we've actually tried to do something a little more unique. And that is, when they remove the house, because of the way the foundation's going to have to be built, there's a couple things. One, we proposed a detention area so that if there is pumping, that they have a place to pump it. That detention area is only going to be about 2.5 feet deep because that's how deep it is to the groundwater. So we're going to excavate it out. It's going to be temporary in nature. We, at this moment, don't know exactly how the architect proposes to place the foundation, but I anticipate he's going to have to do some dewatering, and so we designated a dewatering area. I took the liberty of showing that area because, again, I'm not sure how they're going to accomplish that. So in terms of improvements, the house is going to be in the shifted 5 feet. It's going to have a new landing for the deck. It has another set of stairs here. We have to do that because it also has to be elevated because it is in a flood zone. And the flood zone actually, I don't show it on this plan. It is staked in the field, but it is flood zone elevation 15, so we had to make the first floor at least 1 foot higher, elevation 16, because of your regulations, and we added a foot. I mean, a half a foot, so it's at 16.5. getting back to the drainage, what we propose to do is we show conductor pipes at each corner, and the slab elevation is proposed to be at 7.5. We actually have a crush base put below the slab. So the crush base is going to be at an elevation of about 6 to 7, and then there'll be about a half a foot or anywhere from 4 inches to a 6-inch slab, which brings us up to 7.5. So we're going to drain all the dry wells into that crushed stone base. It's porous. We have a granular soil, and because we have elevated groundwater, that being about elevation 5, we really don't have any place to put a deep basin because we'd be in the groundwater. So what we intend to do is remove any organic material, go down to the coarse granular sands that we encountered, fill it back with either crushed stone or sand and crushed stone combination. But the dry wells will be directed actually to underneath the house. Very much like you might see on many parking lots where they actually have chambers below the parking surface to contain either the first flush or the increase in volume of material leaving the site because of the man-made improvements. I probably skipped over the most important part, and that is the resource areas. We're greater than 300 feet away from any vegetated resource area. In fact, I think the only regulation that triggers us coming here is we're in land subject to coastal storm flowage, and we're near a coastal bank. However, this is almost an opposite scenario. I've never seen anything quite like it. The top of the coastal bank's back here on someone else's property. We're virtually working below the top of the coastal bank and then this entire project. And because of the site and the elevation of the groundwater, we are actually proposing the SAS be placed at the toe of the bank. Because the groundwater is so high, we actually have proposed a retaining wall to retain the SAS. The way we've designed it, we don't need any variances from the Board of Health. We're 5 feet above the groundwater. We're greater than 10 feet from the property line. It's all gravity flow. But as a courtesy, we are taking it to the board for commentary. We don't believe there's any requirement. Because the house is so high, it's going to be gravity flow to the tank, then to the field. Now, one of the things I didn't do, and I will provide, is a volume calculation of how much material we're going to need in this area. Because we are filling this area in here. We do have a wall here. We need to fill it in order to keep the 5 feet vertical separation. We thought that was a reasonable alternative, given the fact that we're taking the existing structure with the septic system directly in the groundwater. We're removing it, we're raising it to comply with the floodplain requirements, and we're, I'll use the term, using maximum feasible compliance for the Title V upgrade. That's well, in lieu of the alterations into the coastal bank, we propose all this area to be planted with indigenous plants. We are recommended that there be no trees or shrubs on that because of the SAS, and we want shallow-rooted plants. And at the toe of the wall, in order to give you more than just herbaceous plants, we've proposed 6 high bush blueberry over here, because this will be freshwater wetlands habitat. I mean, the groundwater is only 2 feet down. So that's it.
Thanks, Jack. Jen?
Jack, where's the wall on the other side of your system where the tank is? You have to enclose your entire system.
That's
to
over
hold it
here.
back. So that's that wall over there.
Yep.
So you're gonna fill all back there?
We are filling starting at this point, this area right in here. And the reason we embedded it into the
Can you give me-
bank,
Do you have finished grades done? Do I not see finished grades on there?
well, we shows the top of the proposed wall at 11.5.
So that's your finished grade,
So the actual ground is around elevation
8.
7
8.
to 8. And so you're going to have a wall somewhere between this high and this high, depending if you're at elevation 7, it'll be this high. If you're at elevation 8, it'll be a foot lower.
So you're proposing to raise that grade all through from the end of the stone wall where your high bush blueberry are to the concrete wall near those parking spaces,
Yeah,
and raise that grade 3 to 4 feet in that entire
Yeah.
area?
yeah. We
Okay,
feel
we're
it's,
gonna need fill calcs for that, Jack.
I realize
I
that.
know that. I
When I
know
was
you
looking
do.
at it tonight, I
I
said,
was
geez,
just,
why
I was
didn't I
looking for the
provide
other
them?
side of that wall, and I thought that's where you had
Okay.
it, but I just wanted to be sure.
Um,
That's a lot of
Jack.
fill.
It's like the BBW sheets.
Always provide
Every
us fill
time you're
calcs.
filling, we're gonna ask,
Okay.
and we'd rather have you provide rather
I
than us to
understand,
have
I
to
understand
ask.
completely. We do-
I do like the fact that you provided the basin for the dewatering, although when it comes down to condition the construction of this, we're gonna need a much more detailed dewatering plan from your contractor prior to going forward.
Yeah, that'll be a condition.
That'll be a condition, you don't need
understand.
that now.
This was rather dynamic. The architect is, I think, still a little bit behind on that, but we had actually talked to the contractor, and the contractor spoke to the architect about different foundation designs, because I was toying with the idea of pile-driven, which would require dewatering.
I was thinking that too.
But, you know, there's so many issues, the architect has to reconcile that. So I took the worst case and I said, we're going to dewater.
So you're proposing like some sort of foundation right now and not piles? It will.
Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
it's a
that's what he said.
foundation.
He's gonna go for the worst-case scenario,
Okay.
and if he's gonna change,
It can only be better at that point.
Oh, yeah, it can only
It
be
can
less
better.
dewatering at this
Um,
point.
I'm sure I'm missing something. I talked about drainage, planting.
I'm a little iffy on your dry wells, but I'll let someone else ask that, and that's it for me, Madam Chair.
Well, let me
Oh, you
explain
don't have
that.
a DEP number either, Jack.
I realize that.
And
Let me
I'll check for
explain.
you too at
Under the
5:30.
entire footprint, there's going to be a foundation system, and the architect's going to integrate it with a concrete slab that ties it in. So directly below the concrete slab, we intended to put a 1-foot thick layer of crushed stone. That is going to be where the water goes from the roof runoff into the, instead of directly onto the ground where it's highly organic and it'll sit there, we're hoping there'll be a more direct discharge into the groundwater.
Underneath the foundation.
Not hoping, it will happen. Hopefully that clarifies that issue.
One more time,
I
Jack.
understand what you're saying, but I think there are a couple of people who have had more
Okay.
experience with that.
Okay.
And we'll see what they
Okay.
think
So
about
what
that.
you're telling me is you're gonna put into the dry well, and the dry well is gonna filter it underneath your foundation?
That's correct.
That's right.
Okay,
That's
just
what he
wanted to make
described.
sure I heard that correctly.
That's correct.
Okay.
Mike. Would you like to wait?
Oh, wait.
Okay. No one looks, oh, Courtney, a volunteer.
Are you gonna have a structural engineer confirm the stone and design and everything underneath there? Because that,
Yeah,
It's a little
you know, it's
puzzling,
like-
but yes.
It
The
kinda
actual,
runs counterintuitive.
well,
Typically, you
bottom
wanna
of the
get water
footing-
away from under foundations.
right,
for
I
stability
understand what you're
purposes.
saying. The bottom of the foundation's still going to be 3 feet below where that crushed stone drainage area will be. They're going to actually have to build the foundation, fill it, then put a crushed stone base, then put the slab down. But I understand what you're saying, Courtney.
So you're gonna have two slabs.
No, just going to have
No,
one.
just one.
At which level?
If I may,
Yeah.
my understanding of it, and I'm gonna be direct about it, your downspout is coming down.
Right.
Are you gonna have French drain, are you gonna have perforated pipe? going through
Perforated
that?
pipe.
Okay, now that's a little bit different than just dumping water in there.
Okay, yeah, it's-
If am wrong, correct me, but this is gonna be similar to what your leaching area is. You're gonna have PVC piping perforated inside a bed of drainable materials. You may have to go, my thought, my own experience is that's not gonna be quite adequate enough. You might have to go a little bit deeper just to have, for the surge on things. In that, you have, if you do a cross-section, you have the slab, you have the material that's gonna be the drainage, but you also have your perforated pipe that goes through from different areas. Underneath that as well, and it's only a few feet, is the natural groundwater anyways. The footings are gonna have a distance on them. You're gonna be, as the only hesitant thing, I understand all this, is when the groundwater's high, that's when you can have an issue, and you can have things actually back out the downspouts, out the sides. And that wouldn't be horrible, because if your footings are secure, and this and that, it would be flowing over from downspouts. If groundwater's high, any retention device, a dry well, pit, or anything is gonna get saturated and overflow.
Right.
You have because you're underneath the slab, you don't have the rain direct onto the ground, if it's as big as what you're saying, it has the capacity. My only thought is that you might need more separation. That's my thought of it. It's done in other parts of the country fairly frequent. Not here, but I have seen this.
You're saying the slab should be a little bit higher.
No, the slab doesn't have to be higher. The material from the slab down,
Oh,
where the
there. You
PVC
want more
piping is,
material
more material to make it more containable, more capacity in that grid. Because if you look at it, the entire, it will be a huge structure that's underneath there.
We estimated a 40% void ratio with the crushed stone. Now, I can go back and take a look at that, but that's why I chose 1 foot.
That's gonna be for the engineers to, that's the technical end of it. If it doesn't work, it's not my problem.
Yeah.
You know, that's,
And we really didn't have an effective solution. You have groundwater 2 feet down.
exactly.
And so what do? You either let it go across the ground, which upsets everyone, because you have puddles there, or you try to do the best you can. In this case, we're creating a waffle of crushed stone that has perforated pipe going through it in order to contain or direct the water directly underneath the house and into the groundwater.
Let's get Michelle's thoughts on this.
I got it now, I think.
So if something goes wrong and it's below the house, I mean, it just doesn't seem like a great idea.
Well, the structural stability of the house is not in question because the bottom of the foundation is still 3 feet below that.
Right.
And so that's the structural support of the dwelling. And I've had experience with this on other basins that are undersized, and what happens is the leader pipe is generally, it's relieved because it's about 1 inch to 2 inches higher than the actual downspout, the collector system. So if it fails, it bubbles over basically on top of the ground.
What about frost heave issues? Are you worried about water in frozen conditions and high groundwater?
Well,
I mean, typically you want to be a little deeper.
high groundwater
than
is
that.
about elevation 5 because mean high water is 3.5. And I actually encountered water at about 4.5, elevation 4.5, and we assumed that it's going to be at 5. So we're already pretty high. And the roads, some portions of that road is only at elevation 6.8, and so it's very, very low area, extremely low area.
Did you consider making a rain garden in the same location that you have the temporary basin? I mean, why not use that for post-construction and do a nice vegetated landscape?
You could do that. I'll be honest with you, I hadn't thought of it. I hadn't thought of that. But it's certainly something we can consider and we can talk about.
I mean, if it were my house, I probably would rather it in a nice
You mean have
landscaped
a wet
rain garden area that I can go and enjoy and not worry about it below my house. But if you want to put it under your house, there's not a lot of detail that was given in terms of the perforated pipe and how it's going to be laid out and all of that stuff. So it was a
I
little
can
hard.
provide that for you.
Hard to tell. So, other questions I had, the wall, this is a high wall in some cases, over 4 feet. There's going to need to be a detail and a structural.
The architect has already been made responsible for that detail.
Okay, we'll
Because
need
he's
that.
going to make it in the same style as the rest of the foundation, so we can match it.
Okay. I think, oh, can you clarify the parking spaces? Are those new parking spaces that are being
These
added?
two are new. These two exist already. They're just not well defined. If you went out there right now, this dash line, this dark dash line is actually the traveled way, so the parking areas, and it goes all the way over to here.
Right.
They actually park right here already. What I did is I wanted to be definitive because I thought you'd want me to. So I showed 2 spaces, standard parking spaces. The client requested that we have 2 additional spaces here. So I showed them.
Okay, and those will
They're not-
drain back?
They
to
are
the
going to be
road?
a crushed stone base.
Right, but, I mean, that gets compacted over time with cars parked on it and, so crushed stone, not dense grade?
It's not dense grade.
Okay, that's all the questions I have.
Court. I just want to reiterate, I think this discussion leads us to having a structural engineer design plan stamped and so forth as part of your presentation. And you're going to need to continue, so when you come back, that's what we need. I think, you know, we can speculate about all of this, and it's going to be great, and it will work fine, and there'll be frost eaves, or there won't be frost eaves, or it will drain, or it won't drain. But I'd like to see an engineer put his what have you on the line with a stamped plan.
The trees to the west of the system, the rather large ones on that slope on the neighbor's land,
Say that again, Tom?
to the west, on the top, on the slope, the big trees that right near the
There's-
system, yes.
There's one big tree
Oh,
there
yeah.
that's not shown on your plans. When I did the final walk around this afternoon, before coming here, I said, they didn't show that. They didn't
You said,
look
oh,
at that
poop.
tree.
I forgot that.
So I showed it here because
Okay.
my crew failed to make it up.
Okay.
So I wanted to show you it's here because it is outside the footprint of the SAS. And here's the existing shed, and it's about 11 feet off that shed.
Yeah.
I think when they first saw it, they thought it was on the other person's property because it's highly irregular shaped lot on the backside. But there is a 14-inch oak, I think,
It's a good sized tree. The,
and it's intended to stay there.
right. The neighbors that I encountered, because I don't live in that neighborhood, so the stranger was addressed.
Everybody said hello to me, too.
They were more than
In a
happy to,
rainstorm.
yeah, more than happy to greet me and welcome me to North Falmouth. It was, the wall, going in, looking at the architectural, at the back of the garage and such, your wall that is gonna be integrated into the septic system. I'm just not quite clear on where the foundation pieces are. Is this gonna be a monolithic pour? Is that wall literally gonna be part of the foundation of the house, or is it gonna be separate from?
This wall here?
If you're going to answer, you're going to have to come up.
Okay. First of all, Tom, are we talking about this wall right in here?
Yes,
Okay, this wall is going to be part of the structure for the house.
okay.
It also is good, because we're greater than 10 feet away, it complies with Title V. Doesn't need a
That's
vinyl
fine,
membrane.
I'm looking at this, and I wasn't really clear. It's very defined for the SAS on the back.
Yes,
But
it's-
on the,
This is going
looking
to have
at
a
that.
traditional
Yeah.
foundation.
He's
and
looking
this
at
is-
that.
That's where
He wants to know how that diagonal is gonna tie into those, right there.
you know, you're gonna have,
That's the structural engineer's problem.
yeah, you're gonna have steps on all the foundation,
And
different elevations in the foundation
to
itself.
go back to answer someone's concern, part of the Title V submission requirements is we show the details. So we came to an agreement before this meeting that the architectural, structural details have to be provided to me in the next week and a half so I can go to the Board of Health. But our second page of the...
Would you be so kind as to give them to
To
us?
give
Sure,
us a copy as
sure,
well.
sure. I don't have a problem with
Then
that.
the-
But it's a requirement of Title V, so it's got to be submitted. And I
You-
just felt that architecturally, the architect should be responsible for that wall design.
I had a little note here as well, the pit, the old pit that's in the backyard, that's gonna end up getting yanked out of there, I would
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah,
just
that's right
because
here.
Instead of being abandoned there, just because
It's
there's
gotta
gonna be
be
so
moved.
much activity, you're gonna be close to footing areas and all that type of thing. So I would imagine that that just has to come out. And then, I got a giggle on this. It says, "What upland side for spoils?" Somewhere on here I read, upland, spoils will be stored in the upland. I'm like, what upland? I just had a little chuckle, I had to let you know you made me laugh. There is no upland.
Not on site. Mike?
As an engineer, I have concerns, but as a member of the Conservation Commission, not my problem. I think you're doing what you have to for us. If you take a 100-year event and try to pour it into 4.8 inches of water, it doesn't work.
It won't work.
If you take a
Our
100-year
goal
event,
is
it's
not
gonna
to
be more
contain a
every
100-year
year.
storm. Our goal is to contain the storms that occur maybe 25 to 40% of the time.
I'm just worried about the homeowner.
So,
I see what you're doing, and most of the time, if you do it, if you construct it correctly, God is good to you, you're okay. But on those wet events,
well, I'm going to take Michelle's idea and bring it back to the members that are developing this project about maybe a wet swale or rain, or
Rain garden.
rain garden.
Won't help in a 100-year storm either.
Yeah.
But
So,
that's, I mean,
But at least it's not
That's
under the
okay.
house. I mean, that's,
right.
yep.
Okay, any other questions? We're gonna need a continuance.
So let me just recap. So what we're going to have is, we have to give you volume calculations. DEP is going to give us the number whenever they give us the number. We're going to look at the rain garden, wet swale. The structural engineer is going to provide us for Title V, but we'll also give you details of the cross-section of the retaining wall.
Foundation,
If
yeah.
that's about it.
Well, if you're gonna keep that perforated pipe design underneath your house, I'm sure the board's gonna wanna see that as well.
We're giving you one of the two.
Okay.
Okay. And,
And try to flesh out your dewatering plan. If you already have a chosen contractor to build the house, start telling them to start developing their dewatering plan on this. Okay?
yep.
The rain garden, the more I think about that, it may be more palatable, and be very creative, particularly in that area, to have a little bit of a vegetated area. We've done a few of them that have been very decorative as well.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think that, my knee-jerk reaction when I heard about under the foundation,
Well, see, the irony
I'm
of it,
skeptical, but I understand it. But I think that it would also, it might be in their best interest to, there is a lot of alteration on this, and it may be, like I said, it may be a very palatable way to present all the activities on this project.
we'll look at it. We'll look at it. The date.
The 31st,
There's no
Jack?
way we can make next week. You're not meeting the following week, so it would have to be the 31st that I'm
31st?
requesting.
Are you gonna have all your information by the 31st?
I will. No, well, I'll have it for the 24th to be submitted
Yes,
for the
well, that's what I mean, will you
31st.
have it?
Yes.
Because you're here on the 31st anyway.
That's right.
Yeah.
On behalf of the applicant, I move to continue this to 7:31.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table to continue to July 31st. Any other questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Any final comments, Jack?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is continuance to July 31st, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Jack. Continued requests for hearings under a notice of intent. So nice to see this one finally come before us. Since we've all been carrying this around with us, or had it on our desks at home since for a long time, and I'm sure you're delighted to be here. All right, so this is Comcast North Central Division and NSTAR Electric Company, Surf Drive, Falmouth, for permission to install a 4.5-mile long submarine hybrid cable across Vineyard Sound from Falmouth to Tisbury. That includes the installation of an 8-foot by 16-foot approach pit for drilling a 6-foot wide by 14-foot long and 8-foot deep manhole, a 3-foot by 3-foot Comcast manhole, an 80-foot long trench for fiber optic cable within 2 to 4-inch conduits to run north, then east under Mill Road to connect to existing NSTAR infrastructure via new and existing duct banks, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Before you begin, Jen.
Yes, Madam Chairman, the only thing, Les, did you have new plans for them, just showing that that little thing had shifted? Thank you.
Yes.
Pardon me? Yeah, that's fine.
Looks good.
That's good.
Yeah, nice. Geez,
Giving this instead of being cut.
Yeah, that's what they do.
Okay,
Put it all together,
okay.
one package.
Thank you.
I'm Les Smith from,
Okay.
talking about.
Yep.
Yeah, it
Yep.
just shifted, I
Good
see where it
evening.
is. Okay.
Okay, you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think, that doesn't sound like it's working, but I can hear you. Just speak up. Pretend it's not working.
Good. I'm Les Smith, Epsilon Associates. I'm a marine geologist.
That's for the TV.
No, we just
You
didn't
do
know it
need
was
to,
on.
You need to carry
speak
it.
up and
Yeah.
carry the mic.
Okay.
We're running out of.
Again, Les Smith, Epsilon Associates. I'm a coastal geologist. And I'm here, my clients from NSTAR and Comcast are right over here. If you have any questions for them. I have a short presentation for you this morning, or this afternoon, excuse me. We're here talking, of course, about the hybrid cable project from Falmouth over to Tisbury on Martha's Vineyard. Here's the agenda of our talk. Talk a little bit about the project history and need, how we selected the route, the type of environmental data that we collected, and then our installation approach. The need for the project arises out of the existing cables. We have 4 cables, NSTAR cables. One is out of service. We have 2 from each Shore Landing and Elm Road, both in Falmouth. 2 of them going over to East Chop, and 2 of them going to West Chop on Martha's Vineyard. They all were installed about 20 years ago with very short horizontal directional drill at the shoreline, about 80 feet. The cables lay on the bottom, and they were also installed in pieces, so they had to splice the cables together. And they tend to come apart at those splices. Comcast currently leases bandwidth from NSTAR on cable 99, which is right here. This started out as a Comcast project, and then I'll explain how NSTAR got involved later on. In terms of the cable history, cable 75 over there on the east side has failed and is not operational now. Cable 99 has failed 4 times in the last 15 years. Cable 91 has failed 5 times. Cable 97 is the only one that hasn't failed. So we have a problem here with these failures. Comcast needs to have some redundancy in their fiber connection to Martha's Vineyard, and NSTAR needs to replace the service that was provided by Cable 75 with that outage. The cable route that we selected is right up the middle, and it's from Mill Road, going across, avoiding what are known as SSU resources, sensitive, unique resources under the new ocean management plan. And for cables, that includes eelgrass, which is the green swath up there along your shoreline, and then those pixelated areas here, which are identified as hard complex bottom by the ocean management plan. And you can see that we selected a route that kind of goes through the hole in the hard complex bottom there and also down the southern end. The state agencies wanted us to show, in fact, that hole existed, that wasn't just a relic of their limited data collection. So what we did is we did a reconnaissance survey back in May of 2011, a day-long survey of bathymetry, side-scan sonar, video transects, evaluating the route for potential SSUs, the hard complex bottom and the eelgrass. And we confirmed that the route avoids those resources. And the state agencies said, fine, go ahead with your next phase of the project, which was basically filing an expanded notification form with MEPA. They agreed with our request to do a single EIR, and they requested that we continue to work with the state ocean team on a data collection analysis for the project. So we put together a very detailed sampling plan which involved about a week worth of survey, doing a 600-foot wide swath. You can see the swath here. Multi-beam bathymetry, multi-beam side-scan sonar, sub-bottom profiling, magnetometer survey, and then we did, in addition, excuse me, how do we get back to this thing? Okay, here we go. Oops, still wants to click through it. So in terms of the bathymetry, the multi-beam looks like this image here. Basically, it takes the data, processes it into this bathymetry map with a huge number of data points, and provides a three-dimensional view of the bottom rather than a single track that you typically get with a bathymetry map. So a very, very precise look at the bottom. Probably some of the best bathymetry that exists in Massachusetts. Side-scan sonar takes a look at the bottom kind of three-dimensionally. It sends out, sorry about that, it sends out an image to the side of the ship. The ship is right in the middle here, and it goes out in this direction, out in this direction, and you see what's on the bottom. So we can see the existing cables shown there. We see the field of sand waves on the bottom, and we can see anomalies on the bottom. We're looking for things like archaeological resources, looking for hazards that the cable might encounter. We also did sub-bottom profiling, and this is a shot over one of the sand ridges that we go across, and some very, very active sand movement on a couple of ridges out in Vineyard Sound. You have 5-knot currents out there, so it's very, very active in terms of sediment transport. So we can also look at archaeological features that might be buried beneath the surface, presence of hard bottom that might be a problem for our horizontal directional drilling, and basically the geological stratification, which tells us the history of the area. Very, very powerful information. We also did a magnetometer survey, which obviously looks at metal objects on the bottom, which is very important for marine archaeological resources. Next, we did sediment sampling and video transects. And you can see the 27 video transects are spaced across here, and then 17 sediment sample locations as well. What do we find? Underwater video, basically we use that to determine where the eelgrass is along the shoreline. As you probably know, eelgrass changes in location from year to year, so we wanted to pin it down very, very carefully. We also used it for other types of marine biological mapping and sediment characteristics. We found over those areas that were identified as hard complex bottom, really these were sand waves, and there was really no marine biota over them. We found a lot of the bottom was a gravel bottom with encrusted ascidians, pretty homogeneous bottom, other than in those particular areas. Sediment characteristics, we did some vibrocoring. Problem with the vibrocoring is it's so compact, the sediment, we actually bent 2 core barrels. So we did most of our sampling with a grab sampler shown there on the right-hand side. Found moderately well-sorted coarse sands, very well-sorted gravels, scattered cobbles occasionally, and then very well-sorted gravelly, very coarse sands. We filed a single environmental impact report back in April of 2012 with MEPA. Secretary found that we properly complied with MEPA, satisfied with 1 EIR. Division of Marine Fisheries indicated that we don't have any time of year restrictions because of the long horizontal directional drills that we're doing. That's a very unique aspect of this project. Natural Heritage said basically there were some plovers and least terns that nest over in the vineyard side. However, since we're doing horizontal directional drilling under their resources, they have no concerns with the project. There won't be any impacts to that habitat. Next, we put Comcast and NSTAR together into one single project. So we had to go back to MEPA and file a notice of project change, which we did back in July of 2012. And MEPA basically found that it doesn't require the preparation of supplemental EIR because the impacts and installation methods are pretty much the same. So what does a cable look like? It's about a 5.5-inch diameter cable. It has 3 electrical conduits and 2 fiber conduits, and then the rest is basically to protect those conduits. Okay, let's get to Falmouth. We're working at the town parking lot here, the corner of Mill Road and Surf Drive. We're going to be putting in a horizontal directional drill pit here. We'll be connecting to a new pit that we create over here, new manhole that we create for Comcast over here, and they will connect over to an existing riser pole on the other side of Mill Road. And then NSTAR will connect over to an existing NSTAR manhole that basically is part of the electric system along the north side of Surf Drive. So the only 2 things that you'll see after the project goes in will be those 2 manholes. Shoreline change, we looked at that in terms of resource analysis. Pretty stable shoreline. The presence of certainly a groin has compartmentalized the shoreline. Not too much change here. You see, after the storms this past year, you see overwash. We didn't see any, little bit of wash over here right at the walkway over. These dunes really kind of contained the ocean water during those storms. Most of the overwash occurred down here where some of the houses are on piles. Oops, excuse me. We are in a floodplain, but we're not doing anything to harm the floodplain, or will we be harmed by the floodplain? We have existing cables out there, as I mentioned. Engineering plans. This kind of schematically shows where our plans are. Okay, this shows both a plan view, and you've already seen that schematically of our horizontal directional drill pit. Shows also cross-section view right here, where we're going out underneath the road, underneath the dune, underneath the beach, about 20 to 30 feet below the ocean bottom. And here's schematically what the horizontal directional drill looks like. Here's the pit. Goes down like that. And here's schematically how it works. First you do a pilot hole. That's about a 3 to 5 inch pilot that gets drilled out. Obviously we have ocean out here, we don't have another landmass. After the pilot is advanced, a reamer is put on the end of the string that's pulled back through the hole and enlarges the hole. Enlarges it to the point where you can pull conduit through. We'll probably either have horizontal HDPE, high density polyethylene, or steel cable for our conduit. Then once we're out here, the horizontal directional drill is out about a half mile, so we're avoiding all those coastal resources. Then we do trench and burial. Unlike the other cables that are out there that are spliced together, this is one single cable, 4.5 miles long, 300 tons. We continue out, going underneath middle ground, and then we come out to the border of Falmouth with Tisbury right here at 13,500 feet. Okay, what happens in terms of the burial? We have a ship out there. It's going to be attached to a hydroplow is one technique that could be used, which simultaneously buries and lays the cable under the seafloor. Or it could be a harbor master units on a barge. Harbor master units are basically big outboards. They usually have them on both stern and bow of the barge. Oops. And they're controlled by something called a dynamic positioning system. Basically, it's a big computer that controls all four of those harbor master units. And you need this out here because, again, we have 5-knot currents. The alternative for that is big anchors, what they call kedging along the bottom. And the state agencies didn't want that because of more impact to the bottom. So we're going with this dynamic positioning system. Type of units for installing the cable would be a hydroplow that has a long unit on the bottom. These are all fluid injections, which inject the water into the sediment, allows the sediment to part and the cable to basically sink down into that hole that's created. Or through some of the coarse grain sediments, they have these units that look like a big chainsaw. It actually cuts through the coarser sediment. Okay, over at the Falmouth landing, again, we talked about the directional drill pit. That will eventually become the N-Star manhole. We talked about the Comcast manhole right here. Talked about trenching over, going under the road, connecting to the existing pole for the Comcast, and then going over to connect to the existing manhole for N-Star. In terms of the notes here, I mentioned the only two permanent above-ground changes will be the new manholes. Obviously talked about horizontal directional drilling to avoid impacts to the dune and beach. No new utility poles. And in terms of other impacts, work lights will be shielded and equipment will have noise abatement measures. Drilling will take approximately 1 month. And the construction will be conducted according to the town of Falmouth regulations governing construction hours. Okay, we've already been before you with an RDA for the boring that was done. The boring found mostly sand to a depth of about 40 feet, which is good for the horizontal directional drilling. The drill mud, which sometimes is of concern, basically is used to bring back the cuttings. It's also used to lubricate and cool the drill head and seal and maintain the stability of the drill hole. The mud is a bentonite, which is a montmorillonite clay. Clay expands up to 15 times. They're packed together as layers like this. When water is added, they expand. If you live down south, you know it because a lot of the soils will expand down there. There aren't too many houses with basements because of the montmorillonite type of clays. Also, there'll be polymers, which are basically a chemical compound that adds to the viscosity and lubricity of the mud. And polymers are used in ice cream starches, cellulose, xanthium, and guar gums. Pretty benign stuff. And also water. I talked about the minimizing impacts to the neighbors, the abatement measures that we already talked about. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, thanks. Jen, any questions? Michelle?
Sounds fun. I'd like to go out and watch
Watch
the
it,
drill
yeah.
in action.
We all are anxious for it.
No questions.
Court?
No question.
Mario?
Les, as far as you know, in the trenching segment, will that be disturbing any shellfish resources that you know?
We didn't find any significant shellfish resources in our examination. And if it does disturb them, it'll be a very temporary impact. It'd be similar to what you see when, you know, some of these areas are very actively migrating. The sand is moving. So we're not going to be doing much more than is already happening there on a natural basis.
So the trench is immediately backfilled, so to speak?
It's backfilled as we go, yes.
Tom?
Super interesting project, the technologies to be able to do this. And your redundancy is going to be contained in one trench. That's just like really, really cool.
Yeah, we actually just we're given an award by the New England Environmental Business Council for pulling together both Comcast and NSTAR into one project.
I'll bet that was a bureaucratic challenge.
They were,
Nothing against either of you.
they were,
My clients have been excellent.
real interesting project.
Mike?
You're going to be producing something like 80 yards of sediment, polymer, as you drag this thing out.
Joe Muds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long is the project going on?
Again, the horizontal direction is about a month.
So you're going to need enough capacity someplace to store this stuff as you bring it to the surface back at the parking lot.
Well, the mud is recycled. The cuttings will be filtered from the mud, and they'll be taken off and disposed of.
Is it in a pit, or is it in a roll-off, or how, what is
Well,
this
the
thing?
pit is where the horizontal directional drill is going in.
And when the mud
And
comes
the
back? it
mud
goes-
gets pumped over to a unit that cleans it,
No.
and then it gets recycled back into the pit again.
And what does that, someplace you're gonna get rid of about 80 yards of material at some point.
It's all material that actually can be disposed of as a topsoil, basically. It's clean material.
I'm having a hard time visualizing the equipment. Is it all contained?
It is.
Where I'm coming from is, do we need siltation controls around a basin or a piece of equipment?
You want to speak to it?
Do you have, I'm Kevin McCune from NSTAR. Do you have the slide of the area on the vineyard where this is the setup? I
Not-
don't think you had that slide.
Not with me, yeah.
Do you have one in your book?
Basically, it looks like a trailer. They have these roll-off units that come in. It's a trailer where things are cleaned. There's one for the mud cleaning. There's one with a generator, and it's all self-contained.
So I don't have an open pit that is subject to rainfall and can put sediments onto a parking lot that can end up wash into the wetland.
They do have the one pit, which is used for the horizontal directional drill itself. But again, everything's
Yeah, the answer
recycled
is
from
no.
that.
The answer to your question is no. He
It's-
wants to know where you're separating the mud from the stuff that comes
In a
out,
trailer.
and that's in a trailer.
It's in a trailer,
That's in a trailer,
yeah. All self-contained.
okay. And the last one is, where is this stuff going when you're finished?
The
I don't
mud,
want to see it end up in another wetland.
it will have to
Where are the spoils going?
be to an approved location.
Okay. Another set of problems, I don't want to see it end up in a wetland.
Yeah, absolutely. And we, of course, need an Army Corps permit, we need a water quality cert,
That's fine.
yeah. So we have plenty of people looking over
And
our shoulder.
we don't
there.
need siltation control around that pit.
No.
When it rains, it isn't going to fill up and run over top, or,
No, again, because we'll be filtering out the mud on a regular basis, taking that off-site.
I never having seen it. If I seen this once, all my fears go away. But
Absolutely.
I see all this mud in a parking lot
Yep.
with a wetland next door, and I'm just trying to make sure in my own mind that the mud doesn't end up in the wetland.
Absolutely. We have a detailed construction management plan in attachment D to the notice of intent. It explains a lot of those details, if you'd like to take a look at that.
We did the same technique under the two streams right here, the one that goes under the salt pond, when we're tying into the existing underground.
Kevin,
Okay.
you have to
We
get
just
up with them.
recently did that underground not too long ago, probably about 10 years ago. We used the same technique here. And actually, the town wanted the muds.
You have to get up to identify yourself.
You have to talk into this.
Jeff in the little room will get mad at us if you don't get up and talk into the microphone.
So there are outlets for the mud.
If you do talk anymore, you're gonna have to get up and identify yourself.
That's the, oh, you have it.
If I,
I have a
I see
question.
this is attachment D.
My
the
turn.
one
Sure.
that is back here.
This
So it
is,
doesn't say what-
how many miles of cable is this?
4.5,
And it's all one cable?
yes.
It's gonna go in from the other side or from this side?
I
It's going in from
don't
this side?
think that's been decided yet, but it doesn't make any difference, really.
Well, what volume of this? You have to have it like on a big spool?
It's on a big
Is it
spool.
on a big
It
spool?
will arrive from Norway on a big spool, yes.
And then it'll be like put in our, say it's on our side, put in our parking lot and fed in?
Well,
No.
it depends upon the contractor. We're talking to different contractors. It probably will be done from the marine side, because it is, it's 4.5 miles long.
Oh, okay, so it's gonna be put on the ship and it's gonna go backwards.
That's
Got
right.
it.
Once the conduits are installed,
Yeah.
then it will follow
Yeah,
that.
that makes a lot more sense.
Then it will follow that.
I just couldn't picture how many miles of this cable. Okay,
Good question.
well, that was a good answer.
Okay.
Yeah.
Mike, to help alleviate any of the concerns you have, these are very typical units that look like a semi, it looks like a box truck, and it's rolled up, and it's piped in, it's similar to what the
Like a
water,
frac tank.
like the water department used
Exactly,
for the,
just like a frac tank.
yeah. Yeah, it's just, you're not gonna have, it's a very industry standard type of thing.
That's fine.
Okay, any other questions?
What's the life expectancy?
Well, the existing cables have been out there over 20 years. This will be buried, so the expectation certainly is greater than 20 years. I'm not sure if you have do you know if there's a,
And I realize
Warranty
that
on this?
Murphy's Law is such that something can happen, it will,
but
but,
once they're buried, typically, they're there for certainly a while, right?
yeah.
So those other cables aren't buried.
That's correct.
So if somebody happened to snag it with an anchor,
Yeah, that's why,
that's a,
that's why they've failed that many times I showed you on there. That's
so
why-
they've all been all those failures are because of something from the top?
Or, we have those big sand waves out there, they're migrating, so,
Yeah.
yeah, if they're spliced together, they tend to be the weak links.
Yeah.
So.
Well, good luck.
And
And
environmentally,
hopefully this will help our neighbors in Martha's Vineyard.
environmentally, it's very positive, because right now with that one cable down, they're using generators to generate the additional power. Noise.
Wow, yeah.
Air pollution, that type
Air,
of thing.
yep. Fossil fuel consumption.
Motion to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
You got that, Susan? One motion, 3 seconds? Okay, any other questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, motion on the table is to close the hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was
Good luck,
interesting.
gentlemen.
It's always nice to have something where we learn something new.
Now, how does it work in terms of issuing the order of conditions for you folks?
We will vote within 2 weeks.
Yep.
Well, actually,
We basically
You're
have to
even
vote it
luckier.
next
We will
week, so
vote it
you'll
next
have it-
week.
You'll have it within 21 days less,
Super.
yeah, we'll vote it next week because we're not
meeting
meeting.
the week after.
And if we
so.
didn't vote, we would have to come at 7 in the morning to vote.
You don't want us back to, give any questions, that type of thing?
No, we can't ask any questions. This was it. This was your chance to tell us what you had to tell us.
Okay, great.
We've been waiting for 7 months for this.
We appreciate your waiting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys can battle out who gets the recording.
Okay,
Nice to see you.
next
Kevin.
hearing, Linda Jeffroy, Carol Weinberg, Philip and Elizabeth Gross, 63 and 55 Girard Avenue and 20 Wheeling Avenue, Falmouth, for permission to manage the beach, which includes installation of seasonal fencing to spread and regrade sand trapped by fencing, to screen, clean, and minor grading of sand, and associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, your quorum is Mike, Betsy, Mario, Courtney, and Tom.
Good evening, Brian.
Good evening, Madam Chair. For the record, my name is Brian Wall. I'm an attorney. I have an office in Sandwich, and I represent the applicants before you tonight, together with Michael Verselli from Falmouth Engineering. This is a continued hearing. We presented the project the last time. There were several comments from the commissioners in Jen McKay had specifically asked that we meet with her to discuss a number of other issues. We did have that meeting. We made a number of plan changes, which Mr. Verselli will address in a rather brief manner because they're pretty straightforward. I only wanted to add one other thing. When we first appeared before you, there were 3 property owners that were listed as the applicants. There's the Joffroy family, the Weinberg family, and the Gross family. And because the issues are a little bit different on each one of the properties, and for other reasons, the Gross family has decided to withdraw from this application, and they will be coming back under a separate filing to deal with the enforcement matter that pertains to their property. So the hearing before you now solely pertains to the Joffroy family and the Weinberg family. And I'm available for any questions, but Mr. Verselli will go through what Jen asked us to do and what the commission asked us to do.
Okay, thanks, Brian. Mike?
Madam Chair, members of the commission, Michael Borselli, representing the applicant. We originally went through the project in fairly great detail. We listened to issues and comments raised by you when we made revisions to the plan, subsequent to your comments and meeting with Jen. We submitted 12 copies of revised plans on July 2nd. And the plan revisions that we made specifically are, number 1, we removed the solid fencing that was proposed along and adjacent to the existing concrete wall. We completely eliminated it. We adjusted the spacing and configuration of the sawtooth snow fencing 2 ways: by creating gaps in between that are staggered from row to row, and also by shifting them further landward away from the tidal zone. So there was some concerns about possibly being affected by wave action and storms. We also modified and checked the area that we're calling the area that is under pending litigation, so that it very precisely matches with what the plan from 1992 showed as the boundary of an area designated as a dune. And that's all the changes. I think that the original hearing, there were no other matters raised. Oh, there's one other one. We modified the notes on the plan so that all the spreading of all the sand will be done by hand. There'll be no machinery needed to do it. I guess that's a pretty important one. So,
Okay.
so the general notes reflect that.
Okay.
We expect it to be a condition.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Are there any questions? I guess, Michelle, you don't have oh,
I'm not on the quorum.
you're not on the quorum. Jen, you had a question?
The only thing is, Mike, I'm glad you guys did everything I asked. I only asked that the snow fencing, and I remember talking to you and Brian, it's stay off that boundary until that whole thing is cleared up. Since it's still on the plan, we'll just condition that all the snow fencing stay at least 30 feet off that boundary, just till the litigation clears up and we see where we're at. And the only other thing is that I know the Grosses are no longer a party to this. You and I had that discussion the other day, but they are going to come forward with the restoration of that dune, correct?
Yes.
Okay, excellent.
Okay, any?
No question.
No. Mario?
I just have a question here, Mike. This area in the eastern sector, the status is under litigation, seems to have grown quite a bit from the first site plan. Why is that?
Because I asked them to do that, Mario, because the way it was depicted on the original, the 92 plan, which, was part of our enforcement order that's currently being litigated, I wanted to make sure that the original plan accurately depicted the area under litigation,
That-
and
that
it was
this
much
plan-
larger. It was much larger dune area than was
Yeah.
depicted on that
This
first plan.
depicts the 1992 plan.
This is what I wanted.
This is what you want.
This is what I wanted.
And just to clarify, we didn't do that originally in some way to deceive you. We only showed what we thought you were concerned about on the upper side of the wall. We didn't show the area on the other side because,
We are concerned with that. And now it's
It's fixed. We can move on.
addressed.
Yep.
I think they've come a long way. You know, I was really glad to see that solid fence taken out along the retaining wall. And so I'm okay with this.
Okay.
No questions.
No question.
Move to close and take it under advisement.
Second?
Come on, there's three of you who can second it. Okay, we have a motion and second to close the hearing and take it under advisement. Any questions on the board? Any questions from the audience? Okay, all in favor of the motion on the table, which is to close the hearing and take it under advisement, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved. Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Estate of Angeline Caruso, care of Eugene Caruso, executor, 191 Edgewater Drive West, East Falmouth, for permission to construct a new three-bedroom, single-family house with attached deck, AC units, to install a Title V sewage disposal system, driveway utilities, native mitigation plantings, and the associated clearing, excavating, grading, and landscaping. Request for a variance under FWR 10.13 from the performance standards set out in FWR 10.185A1A and FWR 10.185A3E. Jen?
Yes, Madam Chairman, I can save any of my additional comments till after Brian's presentation, and the quorum is. Mike, Betsy, Tom, Mario, and Court.
Brian, the floor is yours.
Thank you. Can I just ask before I begin, what happened to the air conditioning?
Yeah, no doubt.
Oh, Mr. Bird turned it off. You want it back on again?
Courtney was over there
There was
fiddling
no
with
middle
it.
ground?
I don't want to
Becoming
dictate,
freezing.
but I just noticed it's getting very
Warm?
humid in here. Yeah.
You can start.
For us suit-wearing people. Let me begin. My name is Brian Wall, for the record. I'm an attorney with an office in Sandwich, and I represent the applicant in this case, who is Eugene Caruso, in his capacity as the executor of the estate of his parents. With me tonight, and also representing the applicant, are Michael Verselli, a professional engineer from Falmouth Engineering, and Teresa Sprague from Blue Flax Design, who's a landscape architect and designer. This is a continued hearing. This property is located at 191 Edgewater Drive West in Falmouth. It's an 11,000 square foot lot that fronts on Eel Pond. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, it's just a summary. Mr. Caruso is proposing to build a modest three-bedroom house with a deck and a driveway, and originally a conventional septic system, but you'll hear tonight that it's now a proposed D-night system with some associated landscaping. At the last hearing, we gave a full presentation of the project. We identified the applicable regulations. I believe we demonstrated how we complied with all of them except for one. This project is within two no disturbance zones, which are regulated by your section 1018, and we have a variance request from those two provisions, which I also went through. The commission made a number of comments, and we requested a continuance in order to make some plan changes and to do some further supplementing of our materials, including Mr. Bird had asked me to submit some cases that I had cited, which I have done. What I'd like to do tonight is Mr. Verselli is going to review the plan changes. I would like to say a few more words about the variance request. Teresa is here to say a few words, but primarily is here to answer any questions that the commission may have. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, members of the commission, my name is Michael Verselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant. I made the plan changes that we believe you requested or based on comments you made. And I'd like to summarize those with you and then talk about two other submittals that I submitted. First, the plan changes, which were relatively minor. Based on site observations by your staff, it was determined that there is in fact a bordering vegetated wetland, so Blue Flax Design flagged the BVW, we located it and added it to the plan. And I have a data sheet.
Did that
Create
eliminate
that tonight
That
for me.
eliminates one question you would have had.
Please tell me I have a good date on this, right? When did you do that, Teresa? Okay. I didn't want to see July 10th on there. Scribbling it out in the hallway for me.
There was also a question about dry wells, and there was no dry well
Thank you, Mike.
detail on the plan. The plans that I submitted, 12 copies on July 2nd with my cover letter, include the dry well detail and the location of the dry wells on the site. And the final, but probably most significant plan change is a change from a traditional Title V septic system to a nitrogen reduction septic system. And that change came about based on some additional information that was requested to be submitted to the record that we then read. I think it was Chairman Gladfelder had requested that the DEP estuary study for the south-facing coastal ponds be submitted into the record. And it's a lengthy document, but we read through, and within the document, the theme is loud and clear that these ponds are suffering from excess nitrogen loading, and it comes in three basic forms. I think we're all probably familiar with it. Fertilizer, road runoff, and septic system, or substandard septic systems. So we discussed it with our client and made a recommendation that we could further improve our application if we offered to provide a nitrogen reduction septic system as part of the Title V septic system to further convince you of how we're doing everything we can to mitigate against your concerns. So this plan now includes a nitrogen reduction septic system. We were also asked to submit nitrogen loading calculations, so we did that. We submitted, and you should have in your file copies of nitrogen loading calculations. But the cover letter summarizes them. And we did a compare and contrast between the originally proposed Title V septic system and the nitrogen reduction septic system. And we used the Cape Cod Commission model, which is the standard one, to just compare the two types of nitrogen loading calculations. And a traditional Title V septic system for this proposed septic system in a 3-bedroom home had an estimated nitrogen loading of 16.3 parts per million. Comparing that to what we are now offering to you and proposing on the plan, a nitrogen load reduction septic system, a singular septic system, the nitrogen loading goes from 16.3 parts per million to 9.1 parts per million, which is a significant additional reduction. So I believe we've done everything we can to come as close as possible to meet the regulations. I think that we've submitted a documentation that justifies how we've overcome some presumptions of significance with regard to the coastal bank. And that's the end of my presentation, and I'm here to answer questions.
Thanks, Mike.
Mike, you don't have a copy of the calcs. I had it in my cover letter, but I didn't get the worksheet. Okay. And I just looked in the
Can you
main
just
file,
put it
because I
here?
got the packet, and all I had were the plans, Brian's documents, and this cover letter from you. So I don't know what happened Okay, thank you.
Good evening, Teresa Sprague, Blue Flax Design. I'll just quickly review what I had already presented at length the last time we were here. Basically, we're planting a total of 2,460 square feet, mainly in areas where lawn had been maintained by the property owner to the south, with 27 trees, over 200 shrubs, and over 600 grasses and forbs, with the goal of restoring degraded areas of the salt marsh, protecting salt marsh by planting the buffer area adjacent to those degraded areas, resulting in limiting human access, mowing, so on and so forth into the marsh area, by protecting existing native ground cover vegetation located in the building envelope by removing that vegetation, particularly of black huckleberry, and replanting it in the restoration areas, and in the mitigation areas, and managing previously pruned vegetation within the buffer zone using best management practices, again, had been ongoing, I believe, by a neighboring property, and protecting the salt marsh from stormwater runoff with installation of drying wells and rain barrel system, and planting appropriate native vegetation in all disturbed areas within the limit of work. So that's up in here and around the house, to improve the buffer zone and wildlife habitat value. So that's just a general overview. I'm happy to answer any questions about the planting plan.
Okay. Thanks. That's it for your presentation?
I wanted to say something about the variance.
Okay.
I won't be long, but I think what I have to say is important to our client. The last time that we were here, I presented the variance request, and it's in writing, it's in the record, it's about a 7-page long letter, and I would ask that you take a look at that. I'm not going to go through the letter again tonight, but I think I would like to highlight a couple of points, and I've got a new argument that I'd like to assert tonight that I didn't assert the last time. The highlights, I think, of the variance request, and the Commission's well versed in this, you have to have a hardship to be eligible to apply. And if you can demonstrate a hardship, then there are 5 criteria that need to be met. In the letter, in my presentation the last time, it went through the hardship, and it went through the 5 criteria. I'd like to highlight some of the points that I think are important. Number 1, we submitted some aerial photos and some photos taken from an abutter that demonstrate that the lot at issue was altered legally before the adoption of the wetlands bylaw. And in particular, much of the alteration was down very close to the salt marsh and to Eel Pond. And our proposal is to replant and restore those areas with the mitigation plantings that Teresa spoke about. Secondly, we're proposing to restore the degraded salt marsh and add 120 square feet. We believe that the restoration of the salt marsh and the buffer adjacent to it will provide integrity and improve the function of your wetland resource areas. The mitigation planting proposed on the bank will improve the stability of the bank. We mentioned that this is the last lot that's undeveloped in the area, and that as a result of that, it is used by the neighborhood as a dumping ground, and we submitted to you that allowing development on this lot will end that practice. We talked about some overriding public benefits, the ending of the dumping, which was recognized by the Superior Court in the Spolaris case as a public benefit. And we talked about the fact that if this lot is allowed to be developed, the tax assessment will go up, which will raise the tax revenue to the town, and the corollary being true that if it's not allowed to be developed, the tax revenue will not go up. And again, in the Spolaris case, the Superior Court recognized those arguments and said that that is a public benefit under your regulations. I also went through how there are similarities to the Spolaris case, and that these same arguments are being asserted here that were recognized by the court. What I'd like to do, what I didn't say the last time and what I want to say this time is I want to focus a little bit more on the hardship aspect, and I want to focus on the rare and unusual aspects of the variance in this case. So I'd like to begin by referring you to your definition section, which gives you the definition of what a hardship is, and I'll paraphrase it. A hardship occurs when the literal application of the wetlands bylaw to a particular piece of property evaluated in its totality, owing to the unique characteristics of the property, is unduly oppressive, arbitrary, or confiscatory, and would cause the applicant substantial economic loss. And that's in section 1004 of your regulations. The hardship in this case is caused by the literal application of Section 1018, which is your buffer zone regulations. That regulation was adopted in 2008. And I think it's important for the commission to remember, because I think you all know, being residents of Falmouth, that in 2008, when that regulation was adopted, the town was already substantially developed, and the number of undeveloped lots in the area, in town, was reduced from what it was in the past. And in particular, in the Seacoast Shore areas, I looked at some of the assessing card records, and it appears that that area of town was developed primarily in the 1950s. So I asked Mr. Borselli to do an analysis of how exactly does 1018 affect the project. You heard us say that it renders it unbuildable, but I wanted to be able to specifically tell the commission. So if you refer to your plan, you can see where the wetlands are delineated, the coastal bank and the salt marsh. And then there is the no disturbance zones from the 1018, which is the problem for our client. And in particular, I would refer you to this V-shaped line here, which represents the 50-foot no disturbance zone from the coastal bank. This part of the house is in the no disturbance zone. If the applicant attempted to literally comply with 1018, the only area that is outside the no disturbance zone is the inside of this V right here. The commission has a policy of requiring a setback from the 50-foot when there's a structure. I was here a week or two ago with another project, and the commission made it very, very clear that you wanted to see 5 to 10 feet for a limit of work. If we add 5 to 10 feet onto these lines, the area that could be developed with a structure in compliance with your regulations is this black dot right here, right at the tip of my pen. It's 2.5 square feet. That, of course, takes into account the zoning setbacks that are applicable. The structure's 25 feet back from the road and 10 feet from the side lot line. So again, let me go back to your definition of hardship. When the literal application of the wetlands bylaw to a piece of property, this lot, owing to its unique characteristics, and I'll get to that one in a minute, is unduly oppressive, arbitrary, confiscatory, or causes a substantial economic loss is a hardship. And so our argument is very straightforward. Application of 1018 allows this person to build a 2.5 square foot structure. That is a substantial economic loss given the background facts, which I talked about the last time, which are as follows. The lot is zoned for single-family development. It complies with zoning and is eligible for a building permit. It has been owned by the applicant and his parents since 1966, which is 46 years. It's been assessed by the town all of that time as a buildable lot. The taxes have been paid as if it were a buildable lot. It's currently assessed for $407,000. We're all members of society. I don't think any one of us would pay $400,000 if you could build a 2.5 square foot structure. So we would submit to you that the literal application of the regulation in this case precludes construction of a reasonable single-family home. That causes the substantial economic loss. It's arbitrary and confiscatory in this particular case because it essentially takes away, the confiscatory part, takes away the applicant's value. And it's arbitrary, I would submit to you, because we have submitted evidence to show you that the interests of the bylaw are adequately protected by all of the mitigation and the controlling measures of construction that we propose, that there will be no harm to the coastal bank or to the salt marsh as a result of this project. Now I'd like to focus for a minute on the rare and unusual circumstance. First of all, it's not one of the 5 criteria in your regulation. If you look at your bylaw and your regulations, it's actually a footnote that simply says the commission should exercise its variance granting power when only in rare and unusual cases. So in this case, we've already made a number of arguments, but I'd like to add a new one. Going back to the point I made a minute ago. In 2008, when the commission adopted this regulation, the commission knew that the town was already substantially developed, and therefore the commission knew that the application of the regulation was primarily going to be to persons seeking to either add on or rebuild or tear down and rebuild. That there would be rare instances where people would come before you with completely undeveloped lots in areas where there were wetlands. I asked Mr. Borselli to do some research about this. I asked him to take a look at assessor's maps and aerial photos. In specific, I asked him to look in, there was an aerial photo from 2007. That's the closest one that we could get to the 2008 time period when the bylaw, the regulations were changed. And I asked him to look at waterfront lots because the issue here that we have is salt marsh setback and coastal bank setback. And so you're not going to find those in interior portions of the land. So Mr. Borselli, and he can testify about this if you'd like to hear him, looked at the assessor's maps and the aerials and went around the subdivision that is known as Seacoast Shores, the entire peninsula, and he looked at the waterfront lots. And he determined that there are approximately 195 lots on the peninsula. I then asked him to determine how many were vacant in or about 2008. And again, using references to the assessor's maps and the aerials, he determined that there were approximately 8 lots out of 195 that were vacant, which equates to 4%. Our case is very simple, that makes this property unique because the application of your buffer zone regulations to a property that's on the water that is completely vacant and which the literal application will render it completely unbuildable is a rare and unusual circumstance. The typical circumstance will be a person that wants to add a deck and they've got an issue meeting your 2-to-1 or your 3-to-1 mitigation requirements. It's highly unusual where someone comes before you and says, all I can build is this black dot. That's a rare and unusual case. And I would submit, and I said this the last time, that this is exactly the kind of case that the commission adopted the variance procedure for. Because remember, this isn't something that comes from state law or even from the bylaw that town meeting enacted. The commission, when it enacted its regulations, gave itself the power to grant variances. And I believe that the commission, when they enacted 1018 and knew how hard it would be for some people to comply with those, it created this escape valve process so that one could come before you and make a case to grant a variance. And I would argue that this is such a case. We're available for any questions. Thank you.
Thanks.
Madam Chairman, I don't have any questions or comments. The board is well aware of my position on this particular application. I stated my position.
Yeah, I have some comments
Yep,
relative
I just want to let
specifically
you
to
know
what Brian
that
just said.
I did, I did pass out your guidance. Pat Harris
Right.
came to you a couple of months ago, gave you your variance presentation on
Right.
how the board should look at variances, and, gave you a memo on that, outlining that discussion
Okay,
to help you, to guide you through these types of hearings.
Right.
So.
Courtney.
Actually, that, you kind of restated what I wanted to say, that she did come in front of us, and ironically, I think when this hearing first came before us, one of the minutes that we adopted was the minutes of that particular presentation with Pat Harris. And in that, I specifically asked her about this type of situation. What was her perspective on it? And I would like to have that section of the minutes, I don't know the date,
Okay.
but I would like to have that section of the minutes
Added to the record.
added to this record. And if Brian wants a copy of them, then would you make sure
Yeah.
he gets it? And it'd be nice if you could have them printed in our folders.
Yep.
For our deliberation.
Yep.
That's it.
Okay. Any other questions? I have a couple of questions.
I have a couple of questions.
All right, you want to go first?
I'd like the denitrification unit that cuts down on nitrogen. But Brian, you can parse words, we're the best of them, but I really don't think that you have met the thresholds of proving a hardship. Okay? And I have 5 conditions here, according to town council. The applicant must prove by a preponderance of the evidence that The hardship was not self-imposed. The project fails to meet established performance standards and could not reasonably be designed to meet those standards. Mitigation measures proposed will allow the project to be conditioned so as to contribute to protection of the resource areas. The project will not create a nuisance, I'll give you that one. And most importantly, it says either the resource areas are better protected by approval as opposed to denial, or, take note of the word or, the project has an overriding public benefit. I don't agree that this project has an overriding public benefit. So maybe you could explain to me how the resource areas are better protected by an approval of the variance as opposed to denial.
We made a case, Mr. DiGregorio, the last time on that particular issue. And what we said was that this lot is one of the last undeveloped lots in the entire area.
There might be a reason for that, you know.
Well, it's because this family has owned it, and the parents didn't develop it, and now the children have inherited it, and they're seeking to access its value. But what we did was to show you that the project would better protect the resource areas. We focused in on number one, and some of these I've mentioned all of them before, but we proved that this area, the lot, was legally altered prior to your bylaw. And so this area here is lawn, fertilizers are presumably used on it, it's maintained, it's right next to the marsh is degraded. What we're proposing to do is to restore the already legally altered area, which we're under no obligation to do, and we think that that will improve the area. We think that the marsh restoration that is being proposed will restore and improve the degraded marsh. We're proposing mitigation planting on the bank to improve the stability of the bank. The dumping that I mentioned earlier is occurring. In the land analysis report submitted by Teresa Sprague, there's evidence that the neighbors are using this to dump brush and other types of debris. We made this argument to this commission on the Spolaris case. The commission determined that that was not sufficient to persuade the board that that was a public benefit. We appealed that to the Superior Court. The Superior Court determined that that was a public benefit. And so we are proposing a public benefit that a court has already determined is in fact a public benefit. Secondly is the tax consequence argument, which I have already addressed. If the building is built, the tax valuation will go up. The amount of taxes that the town derives from that valuation will be a public benefit. We made that argument to the Superior Court. Let me back up. We made that argument to the commission on the Spolaris case. The commission said, no, we don't consider that to be an overriding public benefit. The Superior Court disagreed and ruled that it in fact is an overriding public benefit. You can hang your hat on any one of those. We've shown that it's an overriding public benefit, and we've shown in our estimation that the resource areas are in fact better protected with the project than without. And those are only some of them that I would ask you to read the letter as well.
Well, I'm sorry, I just don't see the overriding public benefit of this.
I gave a copy,
So
Mr.
we can
DiGregorio.
discuss this in,
Yeah.
unless you have anything to add or another question, we can
All I
discuss
know
it in
is-
deliberation.
After I've reread this a few times, a variance is a privilege, it's not an entitlement, okay? So we have the discretion to either deny a variance or in rare and unusual cases, grant a variance, and I don't see the rare and unusual circumstances on this property.
I would ask that the commission, and I know that you have the memo from town council. I haven't seen that, so I don't know what it says. I did have the privilege of seeing Pat Harris stand at this podium in the minutes that Mr. Byrd referenced. I saw the video of that, so I do know how she feels about it. Pat and I have a bit of a philosophical disagreement about the variance. I think if you look at your regulations and you read your regulations, the answers are right there. It says that you have to have a hardship to apply.
Well, Brian, we can discuss our interpretation of the variance. We're the board that makes the decision.
That's true, but
We
if-
get advice from Pat Harris, we listen to your presentation, and then we can discuss it.
If I can confine my remarks to one thing that Mr. Di Gregorio said, the discretionary part of it, if you look at your regulations, it says if you have a hardship, you're eligible to apply. Then it says that the commission, let me find it here. There are 5 criteria that have to be met, and I'm not going to restate them, I've said them already. And then in 10.13.2b, it says, the commission shall consider the request for a variance as part of its review of the permit application. The commission shall grant in part, deny in part, or deny based upon its findings under the criteria. I don't think that's discretionary. I think that you adopted this procedure, you created the criteria, and we have the ability to come before you and put evidence on each of the 5 criteria, and then the board is required to make findings of those criteria and grant or deny the request based upon those findings. It's all in your regulations.
Tom?
No questions.
Mike?
No questions?
I want to make a couple of comments to what you mentioned. One comment you made was that this would result in no harm to resources. And one of the resources, as you well know, that we have in Falmouth are buffers. And the fact that a large part of buffer is being cleared and not compensated for I consider it's a harm. The second is you keep referring to buffer regulations of 2008. It is true that we redid our buffer regulations in 2008, but and I can't tell you exactly because don't remember the 2003, was it, that we revised, or 1998? 98. But this still probably wouldn't have met requirements. So it's more than just back to 2008. Teresa gave a lovely presentation saying what a healthy plant ecosystem this is, and the upland part, and virtually half of it would be wiped out by this project. While I do appreciate the fact that you consider the fact that these estuaries are impaired, that a D-night system is a reduction, but it's not an elimination. So there would be increased stress on this system. And I want to bring up something that Mike pointed out the other day, which I said last time, but I want to say it again. The first comes from Mary Schumacher, was the first who brought this up about the tax argument, and that is, this is a town who values its open space, which means that we do have conservation restrictions, and so the town is at times willing to reduce their taxable load because of open space. And the second is, and this is what you pointed out last time, taxes pay for schools, firemen, policemen, trash pickup. Well, I was going to say maintenance of roads. I'm not sure of maintenance of roads here, but plowing of roads.
Yes.
Maintenance of roads and plowing of roads. That's a town road?
They plow it.
Oh, they plow it, right. And so while there might be increase of taxes, there's going to be an increased burden on town resources. So I understand how you come up with that as an argument, but it's not one that I buy. Are there any other questions? You need any other information? Should we have a motion?
Move to close the hearing and take it under advisement.
Can I have a second?
Second.
Thank you very much.
I was going to say, do you have any?
Well, I had one final request, was I wanted to make sure that the board had adequate information, and if there was anything else that we could provide, we'd be willing to do that, but you asked.
No, you made as Mario said, as we all know, you always make a good argument, and you represent your clients well. It's just that we don't always buy your argument.
And some of us find it compelling.
How about, not always persuading and then buy them, but anyway.
You don't
Your
always,
choice.
you don't always
Say
persuade me,
persuasion.
but
And
there's
thank you,
a-
Brian.
there's
Turn
always a
down the
chance,
heat,
Brian.
now I'm freezing.
All right, well, thank you very much, Betsy, I appreciate that.
Okay.
I only wanted to make sure you had enough information. If you do, we're all set.
Yep.
Thank
Okay,
you.
motion on the
Thank
table
you,
to
Brad.
close the hearing and take it under advisement. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Any abstention? Unanimous, so moved.
How does the temperature in this room just go like this?
It was Brian's fault.
Yeah, I know, I already blamed him.
I did
I
set
don't
it
know
on,
what
I
Courtney
did
did.
set it on 70.
I just shut it down.
It was 68. Courtney put it up to 78. I put it down to 70.
Yeah, so.
Well, the meeting's not much longer, I don't think.
Mike can sit here and freeze with us.
I'm not cold at all.
Request to amend the existing order of conditions. Peter Bennett, 344 Quistit Avenue, Falmouth.
Angry.
Request to amend the existing order of conditions, DEP 253857, to revise the location of accessory structure to a new location in the property and to install a new gravel driveway. Now, interestingly enough, we have something to talk about for buffers, don't we, Jen?
Yeah, we did.
We have something about buffers to talk about with you. Yeah.
The eyes get wide. It's
It's-
not that bad, Mike.
On this project?
Yes.
You look nervous. It's
the
not a
record-
fatal flaw.
For the record, my name is Michael Borselli from Falmouth Engineering, and I represent the applicant Peter Bennett. We're requesting an amendment to an order of conditions that you previously issued for work we were proposing on this property. Filing an amendment requires re-notification of the butters, so here we are. The property is located at 344, I believe it's 344 Quistit Avenue. And Quistit Avenue, in order to see where it is, you have to look at the, you can't even really see it on the key map. There's a very long driveway. It's in excess of it's over 800 feet long. So Quistit Avenue is way to the southeast of this existing driveway. The lot in question contains 32,000 plus or minus square feet of land. As I said, there's a long driveway, there's a paved parking area that comes down the driveway. There's pavement up against the existing garage structure that's located here. There's a big area of existing pavement over here. And then there's the single-family dwelling, typical landscaping, trees on the lot. The house and existing accessory structure have considerable age, decades, and the applicant applied for and got your permission to raise the existing accessory structure, which was a garage and sleeping quarters on the second story, and rebuild it in basically a similar location. And that application also included removal of some pavement, reconfiguration of some parking. This application does virtually the same thing. Also, there was a proposal to upgrade the septic system, which was an older cesspool system, and change it to include a pump, and pump up to a leaching field that's outside your jurisdiction, where the existing septic system's in your jurisdiction. So we got the order of conditions. Then there was another regulatory body to go to, that being the Zoning Board of Appeals. And the reason we were going to the Zoning Board of Appeals is because the structure was pre-existing and non-conforming, and by technicality was in a front yard. So an accessory in a structure in a front yard requires review by the Zoning Board of Appeals. And they had some concerns that were sufficient enough that we wanted to reconsider our options, and make it so that while it's still an accessory structure, it's not in a front yard. And we went to, Bob Ahmet represented the applicant. Bob Ahmet and myself went and we met with the building commissioner, and a determination was made that if the accessory structure is put in this location, it's not in a front yard. So you may ask yourself, what's the difference between here and here? Because the front yard is determined to be an extension of the front face of the building on the street side. So the house in this location is not forward of that extension of the front face of the building. And we have an opinion from Eladio Gore where he agrees with that. So that changes the review process. It doesn't change the impacts to wetland resources, in my opinion, because it's basically the same situation. There's pavement over here, there's pavement over here, and a building over here. There'll be a little bit of pavement over here instead of a building. The pavement that's here won't be here, but there'll be a building here. The septic system is reconfigured a little bit as far as piping, but the old system's removed, and the new system is outside your jurisdiction. That system serves this, and it will also serve this. So the project itself is effectively the same structure, the same type of impacts. There are 2 trees that have to be removed, and they're actually in the outer buffer B zone, barely. And we're proposing instead to mitigate for those 2 trees to plant, I believe, 6 new eastern red cedar on the property. The new driveway is proposed to be gravel. There's an extensive area of pavement out here now. So there'll be a dry well to contain roof runoff from this roof. And the project was designed so that there's no net increase in impervious surfaces. So there's no requirement to provide mitigation in the form of mitigation plants. The only mitigation proposed is for the tree removal. And I think that sums up the project. I'm happy to answer questions and see what you have to talk to me about buffers.
Just the way you calculated it, Mike. 2 questions before, and I might let Betsy get into that with you. How are you going to get from the driveway to the house?
Just walk on the grass. There's no proposal for a sidewalk or anything. You just park. There's actually the owner.
Unfortunately, Mike, that's great in theory, but we all know that when somebody starts walking on the grass, they're going to want pavers or stepping stones or something else to get them there. So think about, I understand that, Mike. I understand what you're saying, but understand it from my point of view. When we go out to do compliances, we see stepping stones. So once you leave and people come and they start walking across the grass, it's not realistic. So please talk to your clients about that, because I don't know how many times I've gone out and it's stepping stones, and I will tell you that this board never wanted to start adding up stepping stones, but it was the engineering community in this town that started adding them up so you could get credit for your reduction of impervious surface. So as I've told you guys many times, and can't have your cake and eat it too kind of.
No, Mike is not the biggest violator. of
No,
that.
he's not, absolutely not.
You have
But
other
I'm saying-
things you violate, but not that one.
I'm just saying, he's just getting the brunt of this argument, because we just went out to a compliance the other day, and I can't remember if it was yours or not, but I distinctly remember somebody saying, oh, they're just gonna walk across the grass. That
Well,
just,
I'm not
it's
gonna
a
argue.
reality
I'm not
thing.
disagreeing. What I will
No.
say is that I will talk to my client,
Yeah.
and if he has some expectation, then the stepping stones would require mitigation.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying, and really, honestly, we never wanted to get into that, but the board was forced into that position. Another question, Mike, you have 125 as your net increase in Zone A, and that's the porch, right? But the porch is 10 by 13.
You have to.
On 30?
Yeah.
You're saying
It's only
130.
like 5 square feet.
Well,
but
because
it's
if you
just
look,
like,
if you look
I don't-
real close, there's part of it that's not in there.
All right.
So,
I
Mike,
don't
here's
look
the
at, I
issue.
just look at numbers.
That's in the A zone,
Yes,
so what you have to do is say,
A
you
fence
have
is
an
gonna
increase
jump
in the
into
A zone, 125 square feet. That would require 375 square feet,
I know where you're heading, yeah.
minus 220
And the 220,
is what you're taking out of the B.
okay,
So
and then
375 minus 220,
apply a 3 to 1.
no, just 375 minus 220. Come on, somebody.
155.
155. You owe us 155 square feet of mitigation.
I understand how you're trying to do the calculation. I'm not going to disagree, but I haven't.
And I'm not just trying, I've done it.
Okay. So you think we need to provide you with the difference between what were the numbers?
375
And
and 220.
Which is, I think we just said 170.
55?
155.
150.
Okay.
It's not that
Move
late,
it up to
guys.
200 and then you get your stepping stones.
Understood.
Anyway, we can
See,
condition,
she threw the stepping stones in as a bonus.
as a bonus.
Probably
We
get
can-
to 200, you can have your stepping stones.
Do you want to condition that or do you want?
Mike, what would you, do you want to give me a plan? Do you want to condition it? You want to talk to your client?
I would like to condition it and make the condition that I bring
Bring in a new plan.
administratively review the
Okay, because
stepping
you
stones.
have pretty much.
No, you're
yeah,
not.
I'll review
I'm not worried about the
with you.
stepping stones, just administratively review where the plants are going to be
Okay.
and
Yeah.
what you're going to do.
I mean, you have some area in there, we can look at putting them in.
Okay.
And you'll just provide me a new plan prior to we'll condition a new plan prior to signing off on the building permit.
We have some places we can put it. In fact, I'll let you in on a little secret.
Why don't you point
I
on the
knew this
corner
was coming.
right here?
There was
Little secret.
there was an option. They really wanted more pavement here, more parking, more gravel, which you would have required mitigation planting for. And we trimmed that back to the point where we thought we met the no net increase. So the places where I was advising my client to put more mitigation than he wanted to, certainly could accept the
With
amounts
that,
that we're
is
talking
that old garage
about.
area, Mike?
It's probably going to be right down in this location.
Okay, because on your plan, you have existing garage to be removed and replaced with gravel, but that extends past your driveway.
Right.
So you see where you have your driveway in gray on the plan?
Mm-hmm.
On your plan, on the notes, it says existing garage, and that garage kind of moves past that. Is that the area you were just talking about, with more parking?
No, we were talking about making this a double wide parking area.
Yeah, so where the area of the old garage is. See, I
Right,
could-
but there's some other areas and there's some area
Okay.
here that would have
Yeah, we'll just
required.
condition it, and
Yeah.
I'll work with you on a plan.
I have
That's
some
not a big
places, and I know the applicant will accept those places for the mitigation. And when I do the plan, I might as well show the
Yep.
footpath if they want a footpath.
And it's just, that comment was just because it's a reality. When we go out there after you guys are gone, you get the permit, do all that. 3 years later, 3.5 years later,
Understood.
we come in and there's stepping stones because, people
Just be happy,
don't want to
Mike.
walk in the grass.
Be happy that Jen was worried about something else and I said, no, they're okay.
Yes,
You
I
could have
was.
gotten in more
I was a
All right,
little.
I mean-
we don't need to talk about that.
No, I was incorrect.
But you're not in trouble, you
Okay.
met the regulation.
Thank you.
Betsy talked me off the ledge.
Okay, anybody have any other questions?
No,
we
I'd
close
like to close and take it under advisement.
Okay, we have motion and second to close and take it under advisement. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
How enthusiastic we are tonight. All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It was one of the most dynamic sites with all the kids last time I was there.
Yeah.
It was really, that's a summer place. That's awesome. Yes, it is. And with very active kids.
It's a beautiful spot.
It's a beautiful, it's an absolute beautiful property.
Yeah. Thank you. Good night.
Good night, gentlemen.
Vote orders of conditions. Martha and Henry Lartigue, 165 Bay Road, Woods Hole.
quorum 1 second. Mario, Mike, Betsy, Court. And this is just Mario, Mike, Betsy, Court. And this is the restoration plan you saw by Teresa Sprague last week, or 2 weeks ago, regarding the area of the dune below the mitigation plantings. The light bulb just went off, and I saw you remember it.
No, it went off. It didn't
Yeah.
go on, it went off. Say a little more.
Fay Road, Dan Celine's the main
Oh,
landscape
Teresa.
architect on it.
Teresa.
Teresa's project.
Oh, yeah.
Remember, she's coming in,
She's
she's
gonna
gonna
restore-
remove the invasives
Right.
in
You
the
walk
dune
along the beach
area.
and go in and
Yep,
they
and they're gonna
get the little
go
path
in
that
and
walk
target
through.
it,
Don't go away.
Don't go away.
and then restore it. You all loved her plan.
Right.
She does a very nice plan.
Right.
There was no special conditions, I believe, that we spoke of.
No, it's
My
very,
notes are downstairs.
Yeah, she
But
I
she
mean,
did
she
very
wrote a
thorough.
detailed
Yep,
plan.
very detailed plan. There'll be a 3-year monitoring on it.
right.
And they're looking
It's pretty
to talk
flat
with the
area.
neighbors because the
They might
invasives
wanna-
are coming in from the
Right.
side. Yep, okay.
Motion to accept?
I make a motion to accept the plan
As
as
discussed, and I'll use your
as
notes
discussed
from
in
the
all
last
good
hearing.
words. And
Yeah.
it is a beautiful improvement.
Yeah.
And
It really
I'll
is.
second that.
Okay. So we have a motion in 2 seconds to accept this as discussed. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Okay, you're all of you on this side will be relieved that Mike would like to be our representative to the Community Preservation Committee, but we have to vote him again.
Move to a vote. Mike,
Okay,
and then another term.
okay. I'll
Michelle
move in 2
enthusiastically
seconds.
seconds that.
Thrilled seconds, actually, probably 3, just a silent second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Mike.
good
All
people.
this?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Oops, second. I seconded that, no, I can't. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Unanimous, so moved.
Found an extra.
Do we get next week off?
No, you get the week
Oh, the week
after
after.
off.